when I watched Liverpool last year, the one thing I always felt, they were always in control. They had a lovely balance about them. They had a steady, settled back four. And just in front of them, they had Ryan Gravenberch. And it was obviously, at times he would play as a defensive midfield player, but because of his athleticism, he could get forward. And I heard an interview of him, I can't remember the game, it was a night game, and he was talking about how the manager now maybe wanting to have a slightly different role. And that's fine, but you can't then change too much and go away from what was so successful for you last year. Because when I look at that balance in midfield, and I always look at midfield, so I feel that's where games are won and lost. They're certainly losing control in important matches. I think about that first goal, the way they dissect Liverpool's midfield. Ryan Gravenberch should not be running out. I get at times you've got to go man for man. He goes and presses on Enzo Fernandez. But there are other times when you just got to mark space, and they are too open all the time. Jamie Carragher mentioned about them being, it's like a basketball game, and I totally get that. And that's what he said today, it was end-to-end. That isn't what Liverpool were last year. And they have had problems in different situations. Obviously, the fullbacks, it's not quite working. You're playing, if you would have said to me last year that Szoboszlai would be playing at right back, I'll go, well, why? He's been one of the best number 8s in world football. Why are we doing that to him? But you're trying to get everybody into the team. You're almost trying to keep everyone happy. Then you get Gravenberch in the team. Then you get McAllister in the team. And everyone right now is just a bit off it. Confidence is low. I wouldn't write Liverpool off just yet, but this is certainly a mini crisis because of the way that they're playing. They haven't been at it all season, but they will get better, and they're still going to be in the equation.
Yeah, I think international break couldn't have come quick enough.
I agree.
And as a player who, as we've been in those situations where little bit of a dip in form and you're thinking to yourself, we just need to go away, get a breather. The manager's going to analyse exactly how the team have been playing so far this season, how we can rectify it tactically. He's got to change things. Clearly, from a selection perspective, there's got to be a rhythm there so that the players get that chemistry built up. Because it is hard, I think, when you are changing players when they're also trying to learn how to play with each other. That's not an easy thing to do. They are world-class players in the team, this, that and the third, but it's not easy.
And last year for Arne Slot, it was one of the most incredible managerial performances. But to a certain extent, it all made sense to him because they didn't really buy any players in, only Chiesa come. This year, he's having to, he's got obviously Kirkes at left back. He's got different players in midfield. You're trying to fit, Florian Wirtz into that team, who's probably the most expensive signing. You're trying to make everything fit, and you're trying to do it quickly with what was a very difficult pre-season for Liverpool for a number of reasons, obviously really difficult reasons. And so things haven't quite been able to gel as what they would have liked. And that's why I think this is still going to need time. Alexander Isak will need time. You bring in Ekitike as well. They are world-class players, but they just need that little bit of extra time, maybe that we wouldn't have expected, because I thought it would all just slot, forgive the pun, perfectly, but it hasn't.
You talked about some of the changes that have been taking place at right back in particular. Trent Alexander-Arnold, we know, is a really difficult player to replace. And it's not just about I think he started 10 of the first 12 games for Liverpool last season. So it's not just about replacing the player and what he brings. It's about replacing that consistency. And the injury early on in the season to Conor Bradley meant he wasn't able to go with the person that he was most familiar with in that position. So then Frimpong comes in, then he can't use Frimpong, then Szoboszlai comes in. How much do you think that's affected? I mean, he talked about changing players in games, which he said was largely down to them picking up yellow cards. But how much of that is down to the unfamiliarity of the position?
Yeah, well, if you look at since Burnley, Kelly, you've gone Szoboszlai, Frimpong, Bradley, Szoboszlai, Bradley, and he's trying to find the right balance. Now, I really want to see Conor as that out-and-out right back. He's obviously had injuries. It hasn't been easy for him. Frimpong played in a back three for Leverkusen. He wasn't an out-and-out right back, and you can see the way Liverpool play. He struggled so far this season. It hasn't been easy for him. And then obviously then you go with Szoboszlai, who's probably been arguably the best of them all, but I still don't think that is the answer. But I think what Liverpool probably would have looked at in the summer, when you lose Trent, who's irreplaceable, who is out there? There's not many great right backs that are easy to buy. You look at a lot of them end up as centre backs that play right back. You look at Hakimi, that would be the best of the bunch, but he's obviously not going to leave where he is. There are not many right backs out there. It's a very difficult position to trade.
I mean, also, we talk about Trent. I'm bringing a player who's not a Liverpool player now, but the reason why maybe Szoboszlai is playing there is he gives you maybe a little bit more power in terms of the intensity which he's pressing with. He can bring the ball into midfield and slot into those areas that maybe Trent was occupying last season. So I think that maybe have been why he's tried to do that. I think
Whereas Trent Alexander-Arnold was a right back who wanted to play in midfield, you've got Dominic Szoboszlai as a midfielder now playing at
yeah,
at right back.
but also I mean, Luis Diaz is a massive miss for me. When we look at Liverpool last year
Yeah, I agree
and
with that.
how Liverpool used to press, I think he was arguably the one who would set the press in the front three. Szoboszlai in midfield was the person who was setting the press in the midfield with that power and that dynamism that he has. But for me, Luis Diaz, how tenacious he is on the ball, hungry to get the ball back for his team, interceptions. He brought something to Liverpool Football Club that they are now missing. I think Ekitike and Isak, Wirtz, they do work. I'm not saying they don't work hard. Wirtz is, I think, third most kilometres in the whole team. So we can't question his work rate. We can't question Isak and Ekitike's quality. But what I will say is that they're attack-minded players. I think with Luis Diaz, he would sacrifice himself a little bit more defensively. And that's the one thing that they have to figure out now is in the attack, who's going to give themselves up a little bit and say, I'm maybe not searching for the numbers. I'm maybe not trying to score the goals. There's always, in a front three, there always has to be one guy who goes, I'm not stats hungry per se, and you see Cody Gakpo this year, he's scoring more goals. Mohamed Salah scored less goals. The strikers, their new signings, what they want to do as a striker, your job's to score goals. That's what you're going to want to do. You want to hit the ground running. So I think in the front three, Jamie goes on the midfield and the balance and the consistency in there. But I also think in the front three, it's important to understand which one of the three is going to be our workhorse, which one of the three is going to be our guy that we're going to let do what he wants to do, and then the other guy is going to be a hybrid of both. And I think right now, I'm not sure the manager quite knows what he's going to do with that front
Are you
three.
a little bit worried about Mohamed Salah's form right now?
I'm not worried because I think for me, it is him trying to understand how he can play with natural strikers and get his chances. With Cody Gakpo, his resurgence, really, I think he's filled with so much confidence. He's scoring more goals, he's taking more shots, he's taking that responsibility on. And as an attacker, that is what you do season in, season out. You want to improve. He's working with his dad. He's doing all types of stuff to become a better player. With Mohamed Salah, I think it's not that he's dropped off. He has dropped off in terms of statistics and in terms of the level of performances we're used to seeing from him. But what I will say is I do believe he's trying to figure out, how do I play with these two strikers? He's worked with a false nine, effectively, in Luis Diaz, who wasn't an out-and-out striker. God rest his soul, Diogo Jota was an amazing player, but he also wasn't an out-and-out striker. He played wide for Wolves at times as well. And then you look at now, he's working with actual centre-forwards. Bobby Firmino, who...
What we're talking about there is when, at times, we say Firmino, if we use him as an example, or, he would be able to come short, and then that would leave that space behind, and that space isn't there for him.
No, it's not there, and also teams are playing deeper. Today, that wasn't the case today. Chelsea went at them toe-to-toe. So that's not an excuse. I've seen Arne Slot in interviews. You can look at it. The fans out there who are watching now, you can go back and watch his press conference from before the game. He talked about how teams set up differently versus Liverpool this season at the back end of last season that's carried over to this year, which is that they're playing low blocks. So we talked about goals from set pieces. They've not scored a single goal from set pieces. So when you look at how Liverpool are scoring goals this year, it's completely different to last year. The last-minute goals weren't in effect last year. A lot of the goals were coming from Mohamed Salah. He's not scored as many. The goals are coming from the left side. So when we talk about the overall outlook of the attack, I'm not quite sure how they're going to rectify it, because you have to make decisions, leave out one of those signings that they've spent a lot of money on, and that's not an easy decision for the manager to make. We can talk about last season's success and we can say, yeah, they were unbelievable last year, they've done this and that. It's not last year now, it's this year. So the manager's got a lot of, opportunities in this international break over the next 10 days to really analyse the first amount of games that they've gone, you know what, I'm going to have to leave someone out I don't really want to leave out, but I've got to do it for the chemistry of the whole team. And I think that in attack, like I say, I go back to it, Mohamed Salah, you know what you're going to get from him, goals. But in turn, now you've got to find the balance with the other guys. Cody Gakpo stepping up this year. So we need to see how that rhythm's going to take effect and how they're going to get the best out of all of the players, because that's the key, getting the best out of all of them.